Okay, I'm going to be talking to you about how to grow and scale your startup and actually think more globally. Um, we've all been in this situation where we've been figuring out our product market fit and like tackling the Toronto market. And I'll tell you a little bit about what we've done at TribalScale that's led to our expansive growth and really healthy EBITDA numbers and so on and so forth. So I got 583 slides. I'm going to slowly walk you through a lot of spreadsheets. Yeah, right. If you know me, you know I'd never do that to you. So TribalScale, we're a global innovation firm. We started off just building software, and then we started getting into the strategy business. And one of the things that we started doing was pivoting really quick as we found what was happening in the market. So now, if you look at our instance and what we do today, we started building projects in a way that nobody else does. Well, not many firms do. We use extreme programming principles, and we build software in an agile way. And what ended up happening is our clients come to us and go, wow, the speed and quality of how you do that is amazing. How could we make our teams do it? So we started getting in the digital transformation business. And so now we start going in and for all the management consultants here, I'm sorry, but like we don't just go sell $1 million deck. We actually go in and start saying, all right, here's the $1 million deck, but now we're gonna start transforming your team. And that led us to, and it was always a goal when we started the firm, was that if we go into 10 boardrooms and we see 10 problems that haven't been solved, and they're all the same, well, we got an idea for a product. There's a company there that can be made. So earlier this year in January, we launched our venture studio. TribalScale now is in all these cities that you see here. I'll talk to you a little bit about why we're in those cities. It's just not because I like traveling to them, or else Vegas might be up there, Miami might be up there. But these are cities that we actually landed in because of our thought mantra and where we wanted to go. We're 187 employees today in 2.5 years. That comes with its own challenges also, but how many of you go through this? Right? Everybody thinks, oh, that's great, you've had linear growth. Something that really starts to get to me is when people start saying, congratulations on all the success. And I'm always like, oh shit, but I'm about to fall off the cliff, right? And we go through that every day in our lives. But we go through that every day in our lives thinking that, hey, everything is supposed to be linear. We're just supposed to go from the bottom left to the top right. And that's not reality. That's not what actually happens out there. And we all experience this in our own businesses. I wanted to go into what we're going to start to talk about today. And these are 5 things that I think really led to our success. It's the 5 key ingredients and recipe that we put together that we continue evolving on and iterating on. And Michelle did talked a lot about that yesterday. So I'm not going to go too deep into how to iterate, but these are 5 things I think that set us apart. Just a show of hands, how many people here actually heard of us before I just came up? Wow, if I asked you that last year, that answer would probably be nobody, right? In the quick 2.5 years that we've been around, we started November 2015. We've been able to actually do a lot of things right. And it was a lot of small things that we did right. So let's get into it and let's get a little tactical. Figuring out product market fit. We started by saying, we're gonna come to the market and we're gonna take over the IoT world. IoT is this hockey stick of growth happening in 2015. I came out of Pivotal being an IoT guy, saying, hey, we're gonna be the software services company that goes and does that. Well, very quickly we realized we don't know anything about IoT. We're starting to figure out, what we do know is we got a team that could figure out how to build software really quickly in an agile way. And that was actually our value prop. It wasn't that we're gonna go sell IoT applications. It was that we actually have a value prop that we know how to build software better than anyone else. And so we very quickly pivoted to say that we're gonna go build web, mobile, and emerging technology applications. So we started figuring out product market fit. I'll go really quickly into us. Everybody see, everything in North America seems cool, but then you see Dubai out there on that map that I showed you, and why are we there? Well, here's a very quick story. I get a call from the head of web and mobile from Emirates Airlines. And he goes, hey, you know what? We're going through a digital transformation here. We've had agile coaches in here. We've done everything here. Nothing seems to work. I really need you to come here and show us how you guys build software the way you do it. And so we went into Emirates Airlines, and I land there, and it's December of 2016. And it's my first time ever being in the UAE, and I land there and I'm like, whoa, I'm expecting a culture shock, right? I'm a brown guy, but I don't really know what it's like to be in a Muslim country. And I walk out there and I'm like, oh my God, this is like Vegas with like buildings. It's so cool. And so I get this culture shock of what I was expecting to be there wasn't actually there. I think the biggest shock you get when you go to the UAE is that you don't really have a shock. It's actually very multicultural and a city filled with expats. But I go in and I go into the Emirates office and I very quickly realize that in the UAE, if you lose your job, then you have 30 days to find another job or you get the heck out. Sell your house, pull your kids out of school, it's over. Try to go change someone or make change happen when that is at risk for you. That is super hard and super difficult. And so you gotta go physically into another market. And the moral of that story is you gotta go physically into another market and actually go and start living and breathing what your clients are doing there to understand those small nuances of what it takes to actually work in that region. Now, we've been very successful with Emirates Airlines and we have been transforming them and changed a lot of things that are very different for that part of the world than how we would execute here. But you gotta go there and figure out your product, not only to just don't blanket your product market fit, but physically go there and start figuring it out yourself. The second thing is harness your network. I'm a firm believer that my network is my net worth. I always put into my network without expecting anything in return. I do a ton for the city, if you've seen me around what I do in the city, but I do that everywhere, and I'll talk a little bit more about community involvement in a bit. But your network is your net worth. I thought I had an amazing network here in Canada, and I do have an amazing network here in Canada. But when I went to go start TribalScale and I went to go talk to every Canadian company, and I'm not gonna name them all, but you could guess who they are, guess what they told me? Why would you do this? You're making so much money where you are. You're gonna IPO. Don't do this. This is a dumb idea, Sheetal. Why would you go do this? Stay where you're at. Because we're so damn risk adverse, we actually are the idiots of the world. It's pathetic. And so I jumped on a plane and I said, screw this, we're gonna make this happen. I just convinced 5 guys to quit their lucrative jobs, give away their IPO options, write me a check, and now I gotta find clients for them, right? And so I jump on a plane, I go to New York City, I go to one of the world's biggest media companies. And I walk in a room, and I open up my computer, and it's this deck that I thought was so awesome, and now that I have a real marketing team, I realize it was pretty shitty. But I walk in there, and I start doing my presentation in front of everyone. And the gentleman across the table has his committee there, and he goes, Sheetal, close the laptop. And I'm like, oh God. You know, at that moment, I'm like, oh God, poor Josh, poor Dave, how are they gonna feed their families? I just screwed everyone. What are we gonna do? We got no clients. And he goes, have you ever effed me? And I go, what? He goes, have you ever effed me? And I go, absolutely not. He goes, when it was in your best interest to sell me stuff that I would have bought just because I've been working with you for so long, you told me I wasn't ready yet. You would have walked away with a big commission that day, I know that, you know that, but you didn't do it because you were empathetic and you put yourself in my shoes. Do you have the right team to excel right now? And I was like, absolutely I do. And he goes, here you go, here's 1.2 million, go for it. And that's the difference between Canadians and Americans. They go out and will take a shot on you. And so, besides the dollar and everything else, the amount of effort it would have taken me to convince a Canadian company to go do what we did in the US with one of the world's largest, I can't say who, but top 3 media companies in the world. That stuff doesn't happen anywhere. So really harness your network and be empathetic and give. Don't expect anything in return. Think of a piggy bank, and one day when it falls and breaks, it's like, woohoo, I could actually go on vacation. In this case, I was able to start a business. The third one is chase the challenge. I want everyone here to get out of their comfort zone, and we continuously at TribalScale continuously chase a challenge. We go out and we find problems that are actually bothering our clients or actually hurting our clients. And we say, how could we actually challenge them to be better? How could they challenge us to be better? Our transformation practice started off very, I'll say, very rugged, like, hey, let's just start engineering and coding and things will happen. Only when we started getting challenged by Emirates Airlines, how do I get results? How could I show my boss that this huge investment I'm spending is worth it? we started saying, wait a second, how could we make KPIs to what we do? How could we show that we're moving the dial on people that actually being transformed? And we started doing that, and I'm proud to say that one of the biggest financial companies in Canada and in the US now, we just beat out, because we challenge ourselves and go there, go that extra step, we just beat out McKinsey, Deloitte, Accenture, Pivotal, whoever you think is the right person for digital transformation. And we won a contract that could be valued in the hundreds of millions of dollars for digital transformation, because we continuously challenged ourselves and went into the unknown. We never tried to chase what they were doing. We said, if we were going to reinvent it and do it better, what should we do? All right, planning and measuring, setting a roadmap. I showed you guys the ladder and the steps that I had earlier. What you gotta do is you gotta set a roadmap, measure your progress, hit your targets, and plan for the next thing. Do this very quick and be very iterative as you do this. When you go into another market, set your target and say, this is what I wanna go hit. And then if those measures aren't met, very quickly evaluate and figure out what you wanna do. There's a big challenge there when that happens. If you spend too much time going through vicious cycles, especially in another market, or especially a market like the UAE, which is heavily capital intensive, when you go in, you could actually drown if you do it wrong. And we started learning the hard way. Really go out there and start figuring out what the plan is, how you're gonna make that plan of attack, and then start following through. So in order to do that, you need people. So hiring and recruiting. We got a model that's hire fast, fire faster. Sounds harsh, but it's not. You come into our organization, we go through some sort of on-the-job type interview so we get a good feel for each other. We're kind of like dating. Then we say, okay, let's take it to the next step. And we set out clear 30, 60, 90-day goals. I know you guys have heard this before. I've worked in many organizations. Nobody fucking does it. Just make sure it gets done. Hold your leadership team accountable to make sure it gets done. I personally go through at the end of the month every single new hire's 30, 60, 90 to see, have they completed everything or have they not? I make it very transparent for me to actually go in and see what's actually working. Now, it took a lot of iterations for me to get to that step, and it took a lot of work with the management team, and my roundtables heard all about it, to get to where we are. But you gotta find the people you trust, and you gotta start getting those skills in. Find the soft skills. Don't be so prescriptive in what you do. And I say this because I'm very prescriptive to my sales team, being a biz dev guy. However, don't give people a sandbox and say, only play in that sandbox. If you're hiring smart people, empower them to come to you with solutions. You'll be surprised how your process and your company will change to work for the better. And then diversity. We hire a very diverse spectrum, not just diversity here in Toronto. But the cool thing that happens is that as we hire a more diverse workforce globally, our UAE office is teaching our LA office, which is starting to teach our Boston office, and we're coming up with new ideas and new ways to work, because all these diverse opinions of these leaders from around the world are coming together to make our platform, our innovation platform, better than anyone else. Community involvement. Even when I had no money, there's no excuse to not have community involvement. Even when I had no money, very little money, I was doing a lot in Toronto. I was setting up a founder's breakfast. It cost me a couple $100. I got founders out to go out for breakfast. You gotta go out there in the communities that you are and start becoming a staple of that community. Start working with user groups that are out there. If there's an Android meetup or Node.js meetup or whatever it is, get involved in those groups and do whatever you can. It doesn't always have to be with money. It doesn't always have to be you gotta buy food. Maybe you just go there and lend your expertise. But be a thought leader and make that happen, because in every city that we go into, we're firm believers that the high tide will make all boats rise. And we start working and playing nice with all the companies in that community, which also makes us a staple in the community, where I'm proud to say now I'm actually standing in front of all of you and you know who we are. So going global, start thinking global from the start. I talked about the diverse perspectives, but what I really want you to start doing is figure out what works, what you have that could work in another market, because the opportunity is there. There's so many entrepreneurs that come to me and look for investment that I see are chasing the Canadian dream, right? And I look at them and I go, well, your product is so well suited. Did you know that there are 300 million Arabs in the UAE that have no access to anything like this, but you got 10 competitors sitting here in Toronto? Why don't you go over there? And vice versa. If you start looking at opportunities that other people are doing in other markets, start bringing them back here. And you'll make yourself think globally and give yourself a real global advantage. The way we start new offices is by the last point. I take our Toronto team, or I take our leaders now from the UAE team or from our LA team, and as we start new offices in other cities, we do rotations, and I bring our leadership there. And I personally spend a lot of my time in those offices. Establishing your culture, Establishing your culture is super important, and letting people know what you do. So we got some rituals that we do that no matter which office you're in, you have to execute on. We do a daily stand-up. We serve breakfast every morning, so we do that in all of our offices. It's great. Go talk about Donald Trump, Kim Kardashian, get it out of the way. Then we do a company-wide stand-up. Our stand-up is very open form. It'll tell you a little bit about us. We talk about what's happening in the news. We talk about fail fast. Tell us who fucked up yesterday. How'd you fuck up, and teach everybody else. We give kudos, so we give props to anybody who's done something above and beyond, and then any announcements, and then we start our day. And so we do that every morning. So that cadence is followed through all of our offices. If we do a hackathon, we make it a company-wide hackathon, and so all of our offices are competing in the hackathon. We do weekly demos. Every office does weekly demos. We do daily stand-up emails. That stand-up email goes to every office. And you really need to over-communicate when you have additional offices and satellite offices. I say this over and over again. Slack is okay. Get on a Google Hangout, do whatever it is. Say the same thing 5 times to somebody else in another office. Don't be afraid to ask for a deliverable over and over and over and over and over again, because out of sight is out of mind. That's a reality. And so we do these cultural things that really start to make the mesh of what TribalScale is today. With that being said, that's all I got.